Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. Otherwise, I'll never find it in the video. So, okay. All right, here we go. Hey, everybody, this is Rodney Oth, publisher of PRB Plus Magazine. Happy Thanksgiving. This is being recorded the day before Thanksgiving. I'm here with Dave Herpy, who is the Organizational Development Coordinator at NC State University. He has written an article for us in the December issue called Leading with Purpose. And he also presented a session on leading with purpose at the Park Fest in 2025 in October. Those recordings of that session, if you want to go back and look at it, is available online at prbplus.com. So, Dave, welcome to the Park Stories podcast. We appreciate having you and taking time out of your day here. I know kids are home ready to run around and get crazy and have a good Thanksgiving. So appreciate you taking your time. But if you could just give
Yeah.
folks at home the quick 30,000-foot overview of what they'll learn in the article and why they should take the time to look it up. I'd appreciate it.
For sure. Thanks so much for the invitation and opportunity to talk with you, Rodney, and to be able to share this article with PRB Plus Magazine. Appreciate the opportunity.
Sure.
Yeah, so the article, again, is titled Leading with Purpose in Parks and Recreation. And so what inspired this article, Parks and Recreation is at a pivotal moment right now. Staffing challenges, burnout, shifting community needs, and post-pandemic realities make leadership more important now than ever. And this article is rooted over my 20 years of experience across multiple roles throughout my career, initially in municipal parks and recreation, and then over the last 18 years in higher education and leadership development. So the focus of the article is on purpose-driven leadership, and the idea that purpose-driven leadership is not positional, it's relational, reflective, and it's centered on people. So the core message of the article is that leadership starts with purpose. Leadership begins with self-awareness, your values, your motivations, and your strengths. And my experience. I started the article by sharing my experience in my previous role at Kent State University, where I served as outdoor adventure coordinator and worked with undergraduate students and had a graduate assistant that we helped start the Crooked River Adventures canoe and kayak livery on the Middle Cuyahoga River in downtown Kent, Ohio, which was a partnership with the City of Kent Parks and Recreation Department. And so, kind of the part of my story is about, facilitating opportunities for students really to learn their individual leadership skills and their voice in the work that they did with the Kent State University Adventure Center. So I included a quote from my graduate assistant at the time, Chris Hendricks, who actually works now at NC State University in Raleigh as a lecturer of outdoor leadership. So he was wonderful, and we still keep in touch and get together regularly for coffee and walks on our greenway. And he's become a new dad himself recently.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah. So it's been fun to share that journey with Chris over the years. After I share about that opening article, it's about building a culture of trust, which in today's times, with everything going on, all the uncertainties, budget cuts, hiring freezes, those sorts of things, trust is foundational in camps and recreation facilities and community programs. And I share, how trust was important when I worked with Columbus Recreation and Parks in Columbus, Ohio, and the first position I held after graduate school in early in my career. I work with seasonal team members that ran, and I shared seasons that ran most smoothly when we were intentionally building trust through daily check-ins and celebrating all the wins and creating psychological safety, which is really important in today's workplace. Creating psychological safety. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once all your physiological needs are met, then it's really safety. Again, you talk about budget cuts and hiring freezes and those sorts of things. That creates uncertainty, and so that's where psychological safety is really important in building that culture of trust. When teams feel valued and supported, retention improves and service quality rises. So
Mhm.
that's another part of the article. Next, and really important throughout leadership, is communication as a leadership superpower. Leadership lives and dies by communication, transparency, listening, and empathy, especially. When I was a recreation specialist at Lake Metro Parks, after I worked at Columbus Recreation and Parks, I moved back home after I lost my mom to cancer. I wanted to be closer to family, and so I worked with Lake Metro Parks for a couple of years as a recreation specialist. And same thing. We worked across multiple sites across Lake County, and worked with a lot of seasonal staff and volunteers and those sorts of things. And so, good communication was essential to coordinating everything that we had going on. We had a year-round operations, a cross-country ski center in the winter months. We did a lot of school programs in the spring, and we had an annual Grand River Canoe and Kayak race. The summer, we managed Fairport Harbor Lakefront Park on Lake Erie. And we had folks coming out to enjoy Lake Erie and the beach and keeping folks safe. And then the fall, we had our annual Halloween hay rides at Lake Farm Park. So, just all those, communication was essential in all the work that we did, and, building stronger collaboration and a really healthy workplace culture. And two-way communication strengthens relationships and reduces conflict, as we know. So, again, thinking about today's times, that's really important. The next part of the article, I talk about leading through change, which, again, certainly this year has brought a ton of change. You think about all the changes with AI transforming workplaces. No industry has gone unaffected by AI and how that has transformed the way we work. And so, the one thing is that change is constant in our field. But like I said, budgets shift, roles evolve, community expectations increase. And so if we return to purpose, we clarify the why. And involve people early, and we communicate honestly. That's how we can lead effectively through change. So the example.
Do you find, Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you find when you're giving your presentation and or talking about this topic, that have people defined their purpose? Do you feel like it? Do you feel like a lot of people have missed that step, and that's the logical starting point here?
Yeah, no, I think everything starts with purpose. It starts with leading yourself first and discovering your purpose. And it's not something that I don't feel it's something that we're, necessarily born with. It's something that we, discover and, understand over time. And, again, I share a lot about my life experiences and how those kind of shaped my journey in leadership and in life. And so, I think that's really important that folks take time to reflect on that.
Do you recommend that it's like a written mission statement at all, or is it more of a general understanding? I'll say this, like I'm a volunteer, well, actually I'm a ski patroller on the side, right?
Awesome.
And so and it's been interesting watching. I've been there for about 7 years, and there's been a change in administration, right? Or like new administrators have come in. It hasn't,
Yep.
new leaders. There's new leaders have come in,
Sure.
and so. You had when we were first there, you had some old school leaders who been there forever. Everybody just kind of knew the rules. It wasn't that they were bad communicators. It was just that they'd been doing it so long, they just assumed everybody already kind of knew everything, right? Like it was just, we all fall into that if you're somewhere for 30 years, right? And then a new structure came in, and they started defining, who we are, what we're trying to accomplish, what our expectations are, having onboarding classes, whether you're a returner, whether you've been there for 7 years or not, every year you have to go through an orientation, right? And then there's like check-ins throughout the year. And it was really interesting watching how things changed, right? Just with that, like really define, like, hey, this is kind of, it wasn't really like a grading system, but but I think some people maybe feel that way. Like, this is what our expectations are, right? When you're 10 feet away from somebody, we want you to wave or make some kind of verbal contact that you see the guest. When you're 5 feet away, we want you to at least say, hey, good morning and hi, whatever. Because, the theory is like a lot of those little communications end up, that's when that person feels comfortable. Hey, I don't know where the restroom is, or where do I buy a ticket, or where do I, whatever, right? Like it sparks a little bit of conversation, and the guest, in their opinion, the guest experience is better. But it also pushes down to like, what do we stand for, and what are we managing against? Like, what is our purpose here? Whatever. And I think when it first started, people were a little bit like, this feels like corporate speak, like whatever, right? But like the repetition over many, many years, and then kind of living walking the walk and talking the talk from the top down. I've literally, it's the first time I've seen it because I've seen other organizations try and do that, but they maybe give it lip service, if
Right.
that's the right term,
Right.
right?
To be genuine.
Versus owning it, right?
Hmm.
And it's been really interesting. I mean, without that experience, I don't know that I would, I've always been a believer that communication is everything, right? But,
Absolutely.
there's the second part that I never thought about is like, what are you communicating?
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
So do you find that a lot of people haven't quite taken that first step when they talk with you about how to install this in their place? Like when they haven't defined their purpose, I mean, like they don't know what they're managing against, or
You
maybe it's not written down.
Yeah, no, so exactly, you're exactly right. So, you mentioned, the idea of a personal mission statement, and even, personal core values. If you
Right,
ask an audience, how many of you can clearly articulate your core values?
right.
Usually it's a fraction of the audience. It's not a
Yeah,
lot. And so, I think that's it starts with your core values,
right,
and those guide your actions and your decisions,
right.
and then how you make decisions, how you interact, how you lead others. And then your personal mission statement, so, and I share this in my book, Leading with Purpose. My personal values are family, growth, honesty, integrity, and service. And
Mhm.
those have really been instrumental throughout my 20 plus year career. And then my personal mission statement is to help individuals and teams achieve their highest potential. And
Is
so,
it when you're building that personal mission statement, is it as simple as sitting down and saying, like, back of a napkin, right? What's important to me? Like what do I want? How do I want to hold myself accountable or whatever the verbiage might be, right?
yep.
Um, is it that simple or is there more of a process to go through? Like,
No,
self-reflection is
it's
one of those terms that means so many different things to so many different people, right?
exactly. Yeah, no, it's definitely a process, and it evolves over time.
Yeah,
So, family again right now is my number one value.
yeah,
15 years ago, before I was a father, that wasn't my number one value. And
yeah,
becoming a parent for the first time, changed my
yeah.
priority and how
Funny
I
how that works.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, it is. It's a process, and of reflection, and thinking back on with your life experiences, and your professional experiences as well, and how those shape who you become in the process. And
yeah.
so it's the folks that you have, supervisors that you have an opportunity to work for, certainly have an impact on you. Your colleagues in the workplace certainly have an impact on you, and folks in your communities, your neighbors, your family, all that really shapes who you are. But it's really important, especially when times get tough. Your purpose or your values act as your North Star, your compass in
Right,
life. And so when things get really hard, knowing your why is what keeps you going. And so
right,
that's really really important. And
right.
folks that don't have that clearly defined have a harder time with resilience. I talk about the importance of a growth mindset in the book as well. And learning from failures, learning from experiences, and overcoming adversity, and those sorts of things. So, um,
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. Well, cool. Well, hey, is there anything else that you want to add here before we wrap it up, or you
yeah.
feel like you've done?
I say, in leadership, people matter most. So
Mhm.
as I mentioned many times, I shared this in the Park Fest session that, again, leadership is not positional. It's not a position on an org chart. It
Yeah,
is relational. It's impact and it's influence, and
yeah,
everyone is a leader.
yeah,
And it's not by title. It's how you interact with other people. It's the impact that you have. It's how you relate to people and that sort of thing. So, it's we manage tasks and budgets and facilities, but we lead people. We encourage and inspire and motivate people. And that's the big difference between leadership and management. That's really important. So
yeah,
leadership is a choice and a practice. And, the choice to lead with purpose is more important now than ever. So.
yeah, yeah. It's we're a small organization, but when you get the people right, and when you get the organization, when you get the people right, like all the processes end up falling into place, right? Like, and when you get the mission correct, right? It's funny how you get the people right, even if the people haven't changed.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Uh, But it does start with having a little clarity about where you're headed, right?
Sure.
I'm surprised when I sit involved with nonprofits, and sometimes I used to be on a booster club board and with the president there, and like anyways I've done a lot of like volunteer stuff that's been like of an organizational nature, and I've always been surprised at when I go in, and they tend to be all volunteer organizations, which are even more difficult because people are constantly turning over, so the institutional knowledge, if there is any, gets lost really fast, right? And it's always amazing to me how when you go into a place, um, nobody can agree at the beginning what they're trying, what the organization is even meant to do, right? Like you have to kind of start with, wait a second, we can do six things really bad, or we can do one thing really, really well. Let's choose our one thing.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the difference between really impactful organizations and others that aren't so much.
Yeah, and I guess I'll leave this as just an experience that I've noticed. It is pretty amazing to me. I shouldn't use the word pretty, but it's amazing to me how quickly an organization can start moving in the right direction with a top-down leadership, purpose-driven, to use your words, strategy, right? Like you can really take a staff that's beaten up and disgruntled and not happy, and in a relatively short time, get everybody pulling in the right direction, get everybody motivated again. It's not a year. It's not necessarily a years long project. I mean, it can be if it's really messed up and you don't know where you're going. But my experience has been like it can be a matter of months, right, before everybody starts to feel better.
Yeah.
Have you experienced that too? Like,
actually, yeah, my previous role, when I served as our state 4-H camping specialist at NC State, I oversaw all of our 4-H camps and centers across the state, and that's the role that brought us down here to North Carolina from Ohio. And I came into the closure of half of our 6 camps that were operating at the time, 12 years ago. And so I came into that, and had to make some difficult decisions, and really build trust first and foremost, and really get to know everyone, not just our camp teams across the state, but folks in the communities that were invested in these camp properties across the state. And you do that through face-to-face contact, and being out on site and being present in person. And so we were able to over first year or two kind of change our camps kind of operated in silos for a while, and each camp team was focused on their particular brand. And our camps have been in operation for our oldest camp's going on 100 years. Later this decade. So each camp was kind of focused on its own particular camp identity and culture. And so really what I try to do is really get us to work together collaboratively. We're one North Carolina 4-H camps and centers team. We're all part of NC State University. We're all part of Cooperative Extension. We're going to work together, and our staff started really collaborating and on trainings and sharing staff and helping each other out on big events and those sorts of things. And that was a game changer, and just that shift in mindset and how we operated.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, cool. Well, Dave, session was awesome.
Thanks so much, Rob.
I should probably read your book. I haven't read your book yet.
It's all right.
I'll get to it, and then and the article will be great. So I appreciate you working with us on this. It's a great message.
Thanks so much, Rodney. Really appreciate it.
All right. Well, have a good Thanksgiving, and
you too.
Try and what's in turkey that makes you sleepy? Try not to have too much of that.
Yeah, that's right.
Tryptophan or whatever it's called.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
All right, buddy. Have a great week.
Thanks a lot. You too. Happy Thanksgiving.
All right. You too. See ya.
Thanks.